IPMNation.com.
All Natural Being. Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Welcome to All Natural Being, as the announcer says. It's Brian, hanging out with you again for another episode. Today is the 80th episode of All Natural Being. A little tired this morning. I want to thank Jen from IPM Nation. I hung out with her last evening on her show, Liberty Walk. Get a chance to field a few questions and catch up and learn a little bit about her as well. So I had a really good time. We didn't get to bed till... What is it, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9:30? It's like 10 o'clock my time, so it makes for an early morning. But I wanted right out of the box to thank Jen for having me on as her guest last evening. I really had a blast. And a part of what we're going to do today was born out of my interview last evening, or our interview on Liberty Walk. So I'm excited to do that. I want to welcome you first and foremost. Thank you for giving me yet another hour of your day, whether you're listening live this morning, 7 to 8 a.m. If you're up this early, God love you. Thanks for tuning in to the number one show. 80 episodes. Go figure. We're still number one since the debut. And if you've listened in the past, you know that I think we've held that number one spot because this is a show about you. Not the watered down you, not the unhappy you, not the unsuccessful you, but the real you, the true you. I think that's why the show is number one. Speaking of the show, if you get a chance this morning, 331-684-7685. 331-684-UL. Send me a text. You can hook up with me over on Twitter at Brian Brawdy. Also, Facebook, Brian Brawdy Official. You can post a note there. I'll be taking a peek throughout the show, looking in, see what people have to say. And also, you can reach me at allnaturalbeing.com. Send me an email. I'll send you one back. We'll hook up that way. We'll be able to talk and kick around some show concepts, some ideas, anything you want to hang out with and discuss. So drop me an email. I'll send you one back, and we will go from there. You know, last evening, Jen had asked me a couple questions, and I think most of it's kind of like public knowledge, right? I think most of the things that I discussed were things that other people had known before. But it made me think of one particular story that I've never shared in person. Most certainly never shared on the radio show. At one point in my life, just because I had to get it out. Remember that quote from Hunter S. Thompson? You know, that the happiest person is the one that braved the storm of life and lived, as opposed to the one that stayed securely on the shore and merely existed. Well, a part of apparently braving the storm for me was the sharing of this particular story, something that happened to me now 6 years ago. And it wasn't the first occurrence. It's happened to me 2 other times in my life, once in the mountains of West Virginia, once, oddly enough, on the beach of North Captiva Island off the coast of Florida. But this third episode, if you will, was by far the most pronounced, the most visceral, the most truly life-altering. And I just don't say life-altering for me, but the people around me, the people closest to me say that this encounter in Mexico, just outside of Mexico, this encounter changed who you were. It just altered you at a deep level. So I fell asleep last night thinking, well, since I answered Jen's questions to the most part, I probably should go ahead and come clean. This is my confession. And when she said, well, you know, you have a very unique take on life about living in the moment and doing all these things. So I thought this morning We'll get through the open real quick, and then I'll share with you what happened to me that morning into that afternoon a handful of years ago outside of Mexico City, because it truly did. It just didn't change the way I look at life. It changed my life. Things that used to be important aren't. And in some cases, that's good news. In other cases, it's been a challenge because it rewired me. It reconnected my neurons to such a degree that I never looked at life. Having left that area, I never looked at life the same way again. It just never did. And I will tell you, in segment 3 this morning, if we get to it, we're going to talk. Maybe we'll make it segment 1. Let's make it segment 1 so that I'm sure we can get to it. We talked yesterday about someone saying you have a high suck threshold. Nothing ever seems to, derail you, at least profoundly or for an extended period of time. And it was born out of this instant in Mexico City that I would have to say, since that point, I've always looked, my problems have arrived in my life gift wrapped. There's no other way of looking at it. That some of the challenges, some of the problems, some of the things that I've been confronted with, absolutely gift wrapped. Absolutely show up with a bow and a ribbon and a box that holds them. And a lot of that was born out of this particular instant in Mexico City. So we're going to get to that. Well, let's make that segment 1. Matter of fact, I'm going to grab this and pull it all the way up top. Then in segment 2, we're going to talk about what makes you happy. You have an understanding of what truly makes you happy. Because we hear a lot about people saying, oh, I'm so unhappy. And then I often think, how would you know if you were happy? What would you know? How would you act? How would you feel? Who would be there? What would you be doing? What would your mind be up to if you were truly happy? Because I wonder at times if we're unhappy because we don't know what it would take for us to be happy. So we're going to focus on that a little bit as well. And again, on Thompson's quote of, it's up to you. You can brave the storm of life and live, or you can stay on the shore and just have existed. We talk all the time that if you don't go out into the storm, you don't have yourself a boat, you have yourself a dock, right? If all you ever do is stay tethered to the shore, that's what you get yourself. And it's with that in mind, I'll throw another quote. Remember Abraham Maslow said that if the essential core of a person is denied or suppressed, if you hold it in, we're likely to get sick. Sometimes in obvious ways, sometimes in subtle ways, sometimes immediately, sometimes later. But when we hold the essential portions of who we are in, there's some cracks in our foundation. We start to get sick. It's not good for us. What is it? The Gospel of Thomas. If you bring forth what is within you will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. Same thing Maslow was saying. You have your essential core, and that's the anaerobic aphorism we kicked around. We threw up yesterday, posted yesterday. We'll kick around today. But the Mexico thing ties in, and it's odd that it popped into my mind yesterday with Jen, because as you believe, and I believe, I hope you believe, everything happens for a reason. Things kind of align themselves the way they do. So I wrote this yesterday prior to the interview with Jen, but that's the way it goes. So the anaerobic aphorism, it's never about what you dream, right? We hear this all the time. Oh, I've got big dreams. It's my experience in now doing this over 30 years. It's never about what you dream. It's about what dreams you. It's what's on the inside of you trying to get out. As I said to Jen last night, there's great in you. My gig on All Natural Being is to help you go in and get it back out. That's why I say excavate your extraordinary. Excavate it. Get it out. Let's get in. Archaeological dig. Get your inner superhuman back out again. Because then life, no matter what life throws at you here in the labyrinth, it's going to be a great gig. So our anaerobic aphorism is it's never about what you dream. Because you can't count at times on your own mind what it's going to focus on. But you can viscerally feel what dreams you. That instinct, that intuition. And it's kind of like with that in mind, I think I'm kind of like, even the fact that I've said kind of like 3 times in a row now, I'm stalling. So let's just jump into it. So about 6 years ago, I'm hanging out with some friends in Mexico. And as I look back on it now, the poet Coleman Barks calls it a howling necessity. And that's the essential core. Gospel of Thomas, if you bring forth what's within you. My interpretation of Coleman Barks, a howling necessity, is just the need to get your story, get your extraordinary out of you. It's just, it gnaws at you. It's a howling necessity to get it out. And believe me, looking back over this time, and at least preparing to share it with everyone, I've often wanted to believe that it was the pulque talking. There's an agave plant, and they slice it with a knife, one of the leaves, and the sap comes out, and it's siphoned right away from the plant. And depending upon how comfortable you are with it, you can drink it straight from there. And the locals say that it has a medicinal quality to it for sure. If you can sip it and get it down, it's got a medicinal quality. And it says that one of those qualities is its ability to clear your mind. So we get to the pyramids before sunup and meet with one of the locals, one of the natives, and take a couple big gulps of this pulque, right? Because you're one in Rome, right? One in Mexico. You try, you expose yourself to those things, hoping that it'll be a learning experience. So I go ahead and suck down some more pulque. It's like, it comes out with the consistency of, say, Pepto-Bismol, but it's not pink and not nearly as good tasting, I guess. I'm not sure if I've ever had Pepto-Bismol, but you give it. It was like a milky white, chalky, almost more of a paste than a liquid. So it was kind of thick, a little sappier. So just before sun comes up, I hang out, do a little bit, do a little more, and then say, okay, great, let's go climb. And we're at the Avenue of the Dead, Teotihuacan, in the basin of Mexico. And I'm going to explore the temples, the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, the Avenue of the Dead, the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, which is a really cool place when you have all these feathered serpent faces staring out at you. And the pyramids of the Sun and the Moon sit juxtaposed, and in between is the Avenue of the Dead. And it's really something else. These 4-stepped mini pyramids and the walls connecting them have these caricatures, these ancient, right? So been around a while, these ancient faces. So you climb the pyramid, you get up to the top of the pyramid, you could see throughout the basin. I'm at the first pyramid that I climbed, full of pulque. Is the Avenue of the Sun. It's the taller of the two. You can look out and you see. And then you kind of catch your breath. You get back down there. Some of the guys I was with, we made it to the top right away. My friend Bill and I made it to the top right away. Other people took them a little longer to get up top. One didn't even get halfway up. I was like, I'm done. So the moment you get up there, you're just drawn to it. Reminds me of a time on Wudang Mountain in China when I had climbed. We get up to the top of the mountain, we get up to the temple, and on one horizon there's the full moon, and on the other horizon there's the full sun. Full moon just setting, full sun just rising. It really was. I got to the top of Wudang Mountain, and it really was a yin-yang. Full energy. And I've seen it a half a dozen times. I've been really fortunate since that point in my life to be out when it's happening. Full moon on one hand, full sun on the other. And they're both there on their own horizons. And you get an instant metaphysical realization of what the yin-yang is all about. Same thing here, the top of the temple or the Pyramid of the Sun. So then we go ahead and we climb down, and the Avenue of the Dead is just something else. All these little alcoves, these little rock outcroppings that you can climb in and around on and explore. And at the other end sits the avenue or the Pyramid of the Moon. So I'm going, I'm exploring. The day starts to warm up pretty pretty warm, but it's a really cool place. So I'm not paying attention to the heat. I'm really not focused on it, right? I know what I want to explore. I know what I want to see. I know what I'm feeling, obviously. And we've only got a little bit of time because then we're going to take off to go to the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe, which is just outside, just a little drive from where we are. So we finished exploring Teotihuacan and Temple Quetzalcoatl. Now we're off. And when you get there, the Our Lady of Guadalupe, it looks like a giant stained glass disc resting on its side. And its roof kind of reminded me of a snow-capped mountain. Say something, any of the beautiful mountains in Colorado or California or Alaska. And then before you can get to it, there's just a massive, sprawling courtyard of smoothed, polished, multi-gray colored stones. And they're set up in a lattice form, right? They're set up in symmetric squares and rectangles. And when we get there, there's a few people hanging out. It's not packed, as I've told it could be. But one of the things that grabs my attention instantly was I counted 9 separate pilgrims, I guess would be the best way to put it, crawling on their knees towards the main entrance. And their faces are clearly showing pain. Yet what grabbed me was that you could just see the determination in their eyes. And I'm just captivated, instantly enthralled by it. I'm taken by their dedication, their passion. Not necessarily of whatever belief they might have. I don't know what their beliefs are. I don't know them. Strangers to me. I've never seen them before. But I'm taken by the drive. Again, the passion. There's no way you could just sense there's no way they're not going to make this journey. It just gripped their heart. It had to grip their heart and their soul. They wouldn't be doing it. And again, I don't know their personal stories, but I could feel their pull. It's obviously hard for me to describe, but it was impossible for me to resist. And I watched them. And at one point, I knelt down so I could make eye contact. As one particular woman, slightly younger than me, maybe, late 30s, maybe a little younger. Maybe she's a good bit younger than me. And I looked in her eyes, and she just crawled on her hands and her knees to get to this entrance. And at that moment, I kind of looked up, and there was the Antigua Basilica. It's got these 4 corner spires, right? So there's 4 spires that reach up, and there's a center gold dome. And for whatever reason, even though everyone else is crawling in one direction, I'm just kind of this, right? Everything happens for a reason. You're in the labyrinth where you are right now, dictates where you're going to end up here in the next moment. So I'm always drawn for it. It's always the improv. It's always the adventure, something about to happen. So I'm pulled toward the basilica when I'm going to go with the flow, right? There's no way I'm not going to listen to that visceral pull. Even though I was just submerged, I was enmeshed in the passion that these people had to crawl across this marble, this polished cement, whatever it was, across this length of a football field at least, crawling to get inside of the temple. And we go inside, and I remember getting inside. I've been separated from my friends, but I remember getting inside the basilica, and I make, through its main entrance, I go off to the left, and then I make this right-hand turn. And as soon as I make the turn, honest to goodness, it's not the polka talking, it's not heat exhaustion or heat stroke from climbing around the pyramids. My senses, although my mind's cleared, maybe the polka really did do its job. My mind's clear. And as I make that turn, I see this waist high. It's a horizontal table that I can see slightly off in the distance. And as I get close to it, I can see a ceramic statue lying on top of it. Let's say a pedestal. It was shaped like a tomb. It's a big, like a 3 foot tall, if you can imagine, a 3 foot tall shoebox. And as I get closer to it, it's a life-sized, and believe me, lifelike sculpture of Jesus, eyes closed, bloody hands folded over his chest, gash in his side, left foot over his right. So clearly, it's a representation of Jesus immediately after he's pulled down, or at some point after being pulled down from the cross. Now, as hard as it may be for you to believe this, I watched that carving. I watched that statue. I watched that caricature come to life. I know what I saw. And I also know that that statue saw me. It looked me right in the eyes. I know, crazy as it sounds. It looked me right in the eyes. But I felt it in my gut. And then instantly, everything suddenly freezes around me. The everyday, what you consider to be just the ambiance, right? The noise of a crowd moving in and around. I'm not even aware of who's standing around me at the time. There's other people there. I remember as I turned the corner, there were other people there, but everything just snapped to a halt. It's quiet, and my throat instantly just dries. It's like it's like I hadn't had a glass of water in a week. And it was so different from anything I had ever felt. Now, in North Captiva, you could argue, okay, it had been at the end of a long day. I'd been on the beach through the night, falling into the water. That sense, and we'll talk about that at some other point, but you could say that that was due to heat stroke or heat exhaustion, maybe even oxygen exhaustion, having slipped under the water. Or the time in West Virginia, you could, coming over the mountain peak, we could lay that off to just oxygen debt from doing all the climbing. But in this particular instant, there's nothing I can lay it off on, right? I wasn't exhausted. I wasn't tired. It was early in, or late morning, early afternoon. And again, because it was so different from anything I had ever felt, I truly wondered if I had just died, right? Because you think, well, how will you know if you just died? What would happen? Well, maybe your throat feels really dry. Everything else around you freezes. I don't know. You hear people say all the time, oh, there's a bright white light. Well, maybe that's not the case. Maybe they're full of crap. Maybe there isn't a bright light. Maybe you just freeze. Everything around you freezes, and all you can focus on is the quiet and your dry throat. I don't know. Then all of a sudden, I can feel, in addition to my dry throat, my heart is just pounding. Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. It's like I can almost see my shirt move. It's pounding so bad. I could see my shirt right above my sternum, right above my breastplate, right above my chest start to pound. And then it's as if my heart rate starts to reverberate out from my core, and it turns into a full body trembling. Every fiber of a fiber in me, even as the hairs stand up on the back of my neck, everything in me is now trembling. It wasn't even a shaking. It was a head-to-toe, full-body, unbridled seizure, for the lack of a better term. And the tears just, all of a sudden, uncontrollable, gushing out of me in a will of their own. I don't even know what I was crying about. I just know that I was shaking. My throat was dry. It's so dry that when my tears started gushing, I'm like, hey, could I have used a little bit of that moisture on the inside? Or now the tears are just pouring out of my face, down my face, out of my eyes. And then through that blur, it was just a tornado of images. And the best way that I can describe it is that everything that I'm about, everything that I'm seeing, everything that I'm about to see, it's as if the past and the future had all blended together in one moment. And it wasn't my life flashing in front of me. It was life itself flashing in front of me. And it was like a kaleidoscope. It was like a mosaic of fractal pieces, little tiny, they weren't shards of glass, but if I say little tiny shards of glass, you kind of get it. And on these shards of glass, I saw a Buddha sitting under the tree. I saw Arjuna and his chariot. I could feel the force that grabbed Jacob at the river. Remember the pillow of stones? Muhammad on Hira, Joseph Smith in the grove, like the Moses in the burning bush, Lao Tzu and the bull. I could see it all, and it was like Eve's piece of fruit and Newton's apple. Socrates sipping his hemlock, like the polka. Maybe that's what I drank. I had hemlock. I could see things that I wasn't even certain what I was seeing. It wasn't things in the past, things in the future, but everything seemed to come from all around in this big whirlpool, and then straight up in front of me. I remember seeing what I thought was the image of Jesus bent over in the sand and writing a symbol in the dirt, just a simple single stroke of his finger. And instantly, what popped into my mind was the Aleph, if Borges' writing in the dark basement, or Coelho's version of the Aleph on that Russian train vestibule. Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha on the riverbank. If you ever studied Black Elk, and he talks about being atop of Harney Peak, and he knew that everywhere in the universe, this was it. This was the center point of the entire universe. And I could see and feel and hear that this matter and this mass just seemed to coalesce. Everything in the field was there, and there was no other. It was the Aleph right there, a ball right above the statue. It just, if I say it was a globe of all these images, then that won't do it any justice, because it was as if the surroundings of the statue had come to life, and each one of these little fractals, these little fragments, these little things, they drew from the energy around it, and they kind of coalesced right in front of me. And it was as if I could feel the energy from my surroundings being drawn into this vast cauldron, and all of a sudden bubble up into that one point where everything happened right there. Again, the Aleph, the beginning, the middle, and the end was all right in a dot. The cup of gem, right? The shield of Hercules. Everything was right there in that moment. And then gone. And I remember focusing my gaze or opening my eyes, whatever happened, and there was a small crowd of people kind of huddled around me. And I noticed right away that they were keeping a healthy distance, right? They absolutely were doing what they could to kind of back up. And I don't know how long, I couldn't have been there long, but in that instant I realized I came face to face with the truly unimaginable power of living in the present moment. I came face to face with the understanding, the underlying connection of everything and all of us, that there's dirt in our DNA. I came to a visceral, gut-felt marrow of not just in my body, but the marrow of my root, the marrow of our root. That visceral realization that we're all one. And not just that we're all one, but that the past and the future all boil up into this moment in all of time. I know, I'm telling you, from the crying and the shaking and just the grip of my immediate surroundings, it was like it was gripping me, but it wasn't gripping me. It was gripping me, but it wasn't gripping me so hard that I just didn't have one of these full body seizures. I couldn't stop from crying. I couldn't stop from shaking. And then it was gone. And born out of that was my understanding of the labyrinth. Born out of that was my understanding of the connecting of all things, including time, into this sliver, into this instant, the connectedness of all things, past, present, and future. And I remember thinking to myself afterwards, one, I was a little embarrassed just because everyone was kind of pointing at me, right? And then when I came to, it was as if I had witnessed my own Big Bang, or the Big Bang, and then I could see all these things happening. And even as I describe it to you now, I've taken my fingers and parsing them as small as I can on both of my hands, and then tipping them together where my thumbs are touching. My thumbs and fingers are touching. It's like this one tiny, teeny little point in all of time. One teeny, tiny point in all of time. And I knew in that moment what I just, the empathy I felt. I knew in that moment the connectedness of all things. And born out of that was the labyrinth. And honest to goodness, in the wildest thing, I have, I told you about being here in the studio. I don't know if you could hear that bang in the background, but here in the studio I have all my different artwork, all the different collections, and I have a crucifix that's on the wall next to the Buddha, next to Lao Tzu, next to Ganesh. I have iconography from all over. And while I'm telling you this story, honest to goodness, that bang, the crucifix fell off the wall. Right there. Fell right off the wall. Got a little bit of a punctuation of the story we were sharing, the story I was sharing. But I knew in an instant that sense of empathy, that sense of connection, that sense of everything in the moment. And it doesn't surprise me that right now, sharing that story with you, skin, it's the hair standing up on my back of my neck, my legs, my forearms, everything. That was the feeling that I just had when the crucifix fell off the wall. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. How much longer will you let them hijack your head and your heart?
So that was the story that I thought to myself I would share with you, that I wanted to share with Jen last evening, but I didn't want to take up her whole show talking about something that a lot of people might think, I don't really know. But now, having shared it, and having that moment at all time, that crucifix has been on the wall for 3 years here, and that moment of all the time that it fell. But I can tell you that my sense of connection and compassion, it was as if I had been there and been stabbed. It was as if I had been there. I was just the underlying metaphysical realization of the connectedness of all things, of matter in mass, and energy, however it congeals, however it puts itself together. I was there. I was not there in the basilica, but I was there. I could see myself in the moment. I could feel absolutely what it was, as if all time in that single moment collapsed. I absolutely, viscerally had an understanding. And it shook me, and it changed me. And I just, even as I explain it to you now, it just, absolutely changed who I was. And my words don't do it any justice in trying to describe it, but I will tell you that the shaking and the way my teeth just seemed to bite down on themselves, and the tears and the visceral shaking, that even when I did eventually get back with my group, one of my friends said to me, "Are you okay? What's up with you?" And it's obviously something I'll never forget. So I wanted to share that with you just so as people listen to the All Natural Being, because I believe, as you probably have figured out now, that underlying connection of all those things, of all those fractals, past, present, and future, come into the power of now, come into this particular moment in all of time. All right, let's get to it. We said we would talk to you about segment number 1. But before we get to segment number 1, let me take one other quick little break. I want to... Hold on, I'll be right back.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Because it's never too late to take your life back.
All right, that's the benefit of having a studio like this. I want to come over here real quick. I want to grab my crucifix, fell down as I said to you, and that's why I'm going to pull it out. That's over here. Isn't that wild? Okay, give me one more second. Don't anybody go anywhere. Don't anybody go anywhere. All the time it's been up. Don't anybody go anywhere. Here we are. Yeah, I lost a little piece of it too. Maybe what I'll do later is we'll take a picture and put it up. But there it is. And that's exactly the vision that I had in Mexico City. All right, I have retrieved all of it, and we're back. All right, so now let's talk about viewing your problems as if they arrive, like they do in my life, gift-wrapped. Meaning that these are the things that we're going to do. These are the things that will build who we are, that will help us to excavate our extraordinary. Right? That our challenges, that our obstacles, that our problems, they come gift-wrapped when we view them that way. And if you believe in either the science or the spirituality of it, either way, sacred or secular, you understand, you see that everything happens here in the labyrinth to help us secure our pure, to help us manifest in our moment. Right? It's not a transformation. It's a restoration of who you ultimately are in your core, who you ultimately are in your heart. That's what they arrive to do. The lefts, the rights, the ups, the downs, the pivots, the swerves, the lunges, the lapses. They're all there to help in the excavation. They're all there to help in the archaeological dig. And I'm sorry if even as I get through this segment, I'm feeling a little distracted because I can't help but wonder about the punctuation of the moment of telling you that story. And in that particular instant, in all of time, the statue's been on the wall. The crucifix has been on the wall. It's, if you could see it, it's right between Rodin's Thinker, and I have a statue of Ganesh and Atman from the Hindu faith, and it's right across the room from the gong and 2 statues of Avalokiteshvara. Now, in fairness, most of the other statues are sitting on pedestals. There's something, and this was secured on the wall. I think I had some cool little Velcro tabs. But that moment in all of time, that's when the statue fell. I'm talking about that very statue in the moment, the empathy that I felt, the connectedness that I felt to all things in that moment. That's when the statue fell. That was the crash that you heard. And as wild as it sounds, I just want to make sure, because I believe, as you know, if you've listened to the show, I believe that everything happens for a reason, that everything is a clue, everything is a fingerprint, everything is a fingerprint of providence. That the divine, however you define it, if you would agree to live a life of the improv, where whatever presents itself in this moment is there to teach you a lesson, and that in that moment, in all of time, I'm telling you that story, and the statue falls. Scared the crap out of me. I don't know if you could hear it in my voice when it did. So let's hop back in. When you cultivate in your mind a high suck threshold, when you view your problems as always arriving gift wrapped, they're there to help hone you, to hone your head, to dovetail your head with your heart, to make absolutely certain that you're learning the lesson you're supposed to learn in that moment. No two ways about it. So look at some of the problems you think you may be having. Look at some of the hurdles. Look at some of the obstacles that you have in your life. And just for 20 seconds, 20-second victory, breathe in, exhale, scan the horizon, then take action. Just give me 20 seconds. What could be some of the hidden little hints that might be encoded? We said in the anaerobic aphorism to excavate your extraordinary. Well, what if you could excavate from a problem something that would actually help you? We say all the time in the labyrinth, there are no wrong turns as long as you make an immediate next turn. Every wrong turn shows you which way you were supposed to go. Every wrong turn shows you which way you were supposed to go. When you cultivate that mindset, that's what you create in the universe. When you begin to believe that your problems always arrived gift-wrapped, you look at them differently, and therefore they are different. We'll be right back.
No self-help industry tactics here. You're listening to The Real Deal. Brian Brawdy with All Natural Being on IPM Nation.
Wow, I told you this morning, I sent out a post this morning going, this will be the most personal show ever. I'm still just sitting here with a smile on my face. You know, I say to people say, oh, well, do you ever hope for a sign? And I say, look, I get signs all the time. I get so many signs, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can only handle like 11 signs at once. But this morning, to be telling you this story, and then to have that happen, absolutely, the mystery. And so that's what I want to talk about. Let's jump to segment number 3. Because number 3, and we'll deal with this tomorrow. Believe me, I'll be dealing with this today, trying to figure out, right, being the detective, the fingerprints of providence, what specifically, other than just a punctuation of my story, what specifically can I take from the fact that in that instant, in all of time, that's when the statue fell. Segment number 3 is called You Can't Make Magic. You can only ride it. You can't make magic. You can only ride it. And that's the beauty of life here in the labyrinth. Excuse me. My throat's getting all dry again. Look at that. Viola Spolin, I don't know if you remember reading about her, but back in, 40 or 50 years ago, she was quite the deal when it came to teaching people improv. Matter of fact, her and her son are, by almost everybody, given credit for the creation of the mindset behind Second City, right? Improv, stand-up, improv. And she had a great quote that I love. Through spontaneity, we are reformed into ourselves. Think about that for a moment. Through spontaneity, we are reformed into ourselves. So we're moving through the day, trying to control everything, carrots on the end of the stick and whatnot, right? Yes? But when we're spontaneous, we reform into ourselves. We reform into that thing that is our destiny. Through spontaneity, we are reformed into ourselves. You can't plan spontaneity. You can't make magic. You can ride it when you uncover it in the moment, when you tap into the truly unimaginable power of living in the present moment. When you tap into that, when you say yes to that, which I wanted to go ahead and throw in that Tina Fey quote, because obviously Tina Fey knows what she's doing when it comes to improv. I'm sure she knows of the name of Viola Spolin. When Tina Fey said the first rule of improvisation is agree. Always agree and say yes. When you're improvising, this means you are required to agree with whatever your partner has created. Well, for you and me, we can take this and say that our partner is the labyrinth, our immediate surroundings, right? We're a context. Our partner is our immediate surroundings. Our partner is the fingerprint of Providence right in front of us. Our partner is our periphery. Our partner is right what's underneath our nose in this particular moment, in this sliver, in all of time. Just like the Aleph. Everything happening right now in this moment. And I have to tell you, I told you today, 80th episode was going to be special. I was going to share with you something terribly personal. I will never, ever forget this morning's show. Never, ever. Now, my favorite show. Because you can't make magic. Didn't make that statue fall off the wall. It was the story of reconnecting. Of being reformed into ourselves. That moment. That underlying connection of all things. When we reform into that connection, into that field. Higgs field, Holy Spirit, however you want to call it, whatever you want to do. We reform into that moment. And we have that sense of compassion. We have that sense of understanding of what we do to each other. When we fight, when we get angry. What did Emerson say? For every moment you're angry, you lose 60 seconds of happiness. Well, what if the definition of happiness is just saying yes to spontaneity? What if Tina Fey is right, in addition to being really super funny? That the first rule of improvisation is to agree, to say yes, to say, thy will be done. The Tao follows its own path. It is what it is. What if we say yes? Whatever life throws at us, whatever happens in the labyrinth, we say yes. What if we agree to the improv? What if we look at the labyrinth as our partner? Because it is. And whatever presents itself, we looked at it as gift wrapped. Because you and I are still here to be experiencing it. As Jen and I talked about last night on her show. Hey, every day you're vertical beats being worm food. So if we say yes to what happens in the labyrinth, which I think it takes us back to the we were talking about Hunter Thompson, fear and loathing in the mirror. To prevent that fear and loathing in the mirror, we answer his question. We say, no, we're all over braving the storm of life and living as opposed to those that want to be secure on the shore and just exist, just get by, wrapped in, well, I'm bubble boy, bubble girl, leave me out of it. So if spontaneity and happiness are one and the same thing, that you're happy with whatever bubbles up in the moment, when you're connected to everything going on around you, that's the improv. And maybe that's why in my heart, when it comes to goal setting and carrots on the end of the stick, it would be great, I think, if you could have goals and still pay attention to what's going on in the moment. And maybe we reach a certain level, we can do that. Maybe we look at the 20-minute victories as the perfect special sauce, the perfect glue that holds a goal-setting plan together. But right now, in this moment, no carrots at the end of the stick. Take whatever the universe throws at you, whatever the divine, however you define it, throws at you. Say yes to that in this moment. Embrace it with a smile on your face. Take a deep breath, exhale your name, check your 6, scan your horizon, take action, and then just tap into that same energy that I felt, that I saw, that I witnessed, that I know since my time at Our Lady of Guadalupe. Because that's the key to life. That's the key to happiness, is having the courage for around the corner. Oh, I'm supposed to tell you, 331-684-7685, 331-684 SOUL. Matter of fact, text me now, and I'll take a picture, because I'll take a picture of what fell this morning so you can see it. You're going to be like blown away. So when you hear me go on and on and on about all natural being, when you hear me go on and on about the underlying connection of all things, now you know why. The metaphysical realization, and by metaphysical I don't mean hocus pocus, I don't mean Pollyanna nonsense and all the self-help industry tactics. I'm talking about both the physical and the philosophical description of the underlying connectedness of all things. No man is an island, as John Donne said, entire unto itself. Ask not for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. That was the message from Mexico, for me, was that we are all connected, that everything happens in this particular moment in all of time. And again, if the statue hadn't fallen off the wall at that particular time, I hope you could hear it in the background. I hope you could hear me go, what was that? But that's the beauty. That's the magic of life. It's the magic and beauty of your life. When you say yes to the universe, when you throw yourself in to the moment at hand with a smile on your face, with the courage to face around the corner, never looking at uncertainty as ugliness waiting to unfold. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know what that uncertainty is. But we know that if we continue to excavate our extraordinary, that if we believe we don't have dreams, our dreams have us, that we're here to manifest the destiny. How do we do it? By saying yes, thy will be done, throwing ourselves into life, squaring our shoulders with fate, and go, I don't know about you, pal. I don't know about you, sis. Right? But I'm here to manifest my destiny. I'm here to live up to my word. I was dropped off here to do something. People say, oh, I'm waiting for my calling. You've already heard your calling or you wouldn't be here. It's to recall your calling. Maybe that's how we should do it. We shouldn't be looking for our calling. We should be listening for our recalling. Because if you're here, you've already heard the call to adventure, the call to improvisation, the call of being born in this particular moment in all of time. And you have to say, are you going to say yes to the adventure? Are you going to sit on the sidelines? Are you going to leave your soul on the sidelines? And I go back to the Gospel of Thomas. If you bring forth what is within you will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. Or again, Maslow. If the essential core, what's your essential core? Not all the craziness, not what you believe. What do you know? What do you feel? What grabs your spine? If the essential core of the person is denied, if we ignore it, if we suppress it, if we give it a blind eye, deaf ear, give it a cold shoulder, then we're going to get sick. But as Maslow says, sometimes in obvious ways, sometimes in subtle ways. Sometimes right away, sometimes later. But we will get sick if we turn our back on our hearts. What is your to finish up with Coleman Barks, what is your howling necessity? What is your destiny? What were you put here to do? What were you put here to do in this moment, in all of time? Were you put here to say no to the adventure at hand? Were you put here to take a pass? Or were you put here to say yes to your adventure, to yourself, to your happiness, to your fulfillment, to your success? As a part of your 20-second victory today. Do it for 20 seconds. 20 minutes, if you got it, would be great. 1/72nd of your day. I think you're worth it. I think you do too. Just got to give yourself permission. Take 1/72nd of your day off. Look into the mirror and ask yourself, what is my howling necessity? What is my howling necessity? No, I don't want a piece of chocolate cake. I'm not talking about those kind of howling necessities, not those types of cravings. What is your howling necessity? Usinars, from your soul's sap, from the marrow of your mind, what is your howling necessity? First thing that comes to mind, write it down. And then as you write that down, you have your journal, your logbook, your evidence blotter, whatever you like. As you write it down, what's the next thing that comes to mind? Write it down. Begin to craft right there in front of you your howling necessity. One chisel strike at a time. Let's remove some of the baggage, some of the things, some of the beliefs that we have that make us feel we're disconnected. Let's remove them. Let's be done with them. Let's excavate your extraordinary by remembering who you are. Let's peel away some of the layers of amnesia. Let's wipe away, sandpaper away some of the blind spots. Let's be done with all of it. Because when we give away all the baggage, what do we have left? Our all-natural being, our essential core, that thing that you need to bring forth. That's the key to happiness. How do we do it? Improvisation. How do we do it? One instant, this instant, in all of time, saying yes to the adventure at hand, saying yes to your smile. We all have a laundry list of imperfections, right? Let's just forgive ourselves for all the crap we've pulled in the past. Let's ignore it. Just for 20 minutes, forgive yourself and go, yeah, you know what? I could have handled that better, but I didn't. Apologize, move on, and begin to excavate your smile. Begin to say yes to the moment at hand. And you'll watch. Wild things will happen to you as well. Wild things will fall off your wall. That's the way the universe works. When you open yourself up to that magic at hand, when you realize that you can't create it, but you most certainly can say yes to it. You can ride it. That's the beauty and the mystery of the uncertainty in life. There is no way. Quadrillions to one would have been the odds for me to predict that statue was going to fall off the wall. In the very moment, the only time I've shared that story in public. Speaking of that, I've written about something similar in a blog post once. But in that moment, in all of time, that's when the statue fell. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Sorry, we had a little bit of, well, just life according to Brian, right? A little bit of a disjointed show this morning, but that's the way life unfolds. It's most certainly the way my life unfolds for me, and I'm absolutely confident that once you start to excavate your extraordinary, it's exactly the same way your life will unfold for you. So get out there, make it a fantastic day. Say yes to the mystery. Say yes to the magic. Say yes to your self. Do it with a smile on your face. No apologies, just smiles. Looking forward to hanging with you tomorrow. I'm going to go meditate for a while. Have a fantastic day.
All
listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy.
Join us live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern.
Also, check us out around the clock at allnaturalbeing.com.
Until then, always remember to bring your own bold.
Just wild. Gotta love life.
IPMNation.com.